go back. Like talking about AI, right? Let's go back, and I want to share with you my story first. This is where it all started for me. Does anybody even know what this is? Oh, more people than like irony. That's very disappointing. Right, this is the game I was playing non-stop, literally for years and years and years, trying to figure out how to save the princess, the Prince of Persia. I never saved the princess. I never did. I actually had to watch a YouTube tutorial, kind of walk through to see how that actually works. It's really complicated. It was difficult, but this was the start of the journey for me. And then a couple of years later, right, I discovered this. Has anybody seen this before? No, maybe? One person, two people? So this website today is around 35 years old. It might be older than some of you sitting in this room. This was the time before Flash, because Flash didn't exist back in the day. This was the time where Macromedia Shockwave was a thing. Anybody designed with Macromedia Shockwave? Oh, I wanted to do this for a living. This is how exciting it was. And then if we actually move forward, when I saw this for the first time, I really wanted to do this, right? And then I kept going, and this is the website that I discovered in 2008 that changed my career forever. Now, do you even know what this is? Video text, oh, good old days. This is video text meets links and the web and buttons and stuff. It was incredible. I really wanted to do this for a living. I'm a big fan of Ivan Ferreiro, who is the artist behind it. I never heard a single song from Ivan Ferreiro, but I love him. This is unbelievable. I'm really, really a big fan. Right, and then if we move forward, we end up going to places. Like that's what we can do today on the web. Wow. Right? We can just gather information from all kinds of places. We can get live feed, and we can get like really projecting where the cars are and what the weather is like, and map it all in real time, and it's fast and sometimes accessible. That's pretty neat, right? That's pretty neat, right? So why, dear friends, why is it that in 2025 we still have this? Is it the pinnacle of our career in 25 years or so? Is it really the best we can do? I feel like every single day I wake up and I have to solve puzzles for a living. This is my job now. And I don't know about you, but I take these puzzles very seriously. And of course, when you look at this, right, you see like, we don't get this anymore, right? We don't see that much. We see this instead, right? And if you are like me, who takes things seriously, right? Whenever you get maybe to, hold on, let's see, come back. Whenever you actually look at something like this here, this quadrant over here, I want to get it right. Is it just me? Whenever I see this, I want to get it right. So I really zoom in and I really pay attention to not hit it again, to kind of make a mistake and so on. And we keep going, and sometimes interfaces are just really sad. Let's get a cup of coffee, tea, snacks, and so on, and figure out what we're going to do in life, right? And sometimes it's just really, really strange. Every time I have a call with someone, I really question my life choices, because every time I'm really afraid that I'm going to get this. Because I know that whatever I click, it doesn't matter what I choose, it's always wrong. It's always wrong. I never know how to do this right. And so, looking at where we are now, we ended up with this new paradigm, this. Right? Back in 2022, when we saw this for the very first time, it felt magical, incredible, right? You can actually type in a text box. Guess what? You can type in a text box, and the text box would understand you. It would speak to you. It will just take around 25 to 35 seconds to speak back to you, but you sit and wait, because who doesn't like waiting? Right? So you sit and wait, and then you can continue that conversation. And that felt magical to us back in 2022. It does not feel magical today. If you go in an elevator and you press a button and you need to wait for 25 seconds for it to come back and start moving, that would be a horrible experience. If you need to click on the button and wait for 30 seconds for something to happen, that would have been a horrible experience. So when we started doing research around this to understand how do people actually use AI, and what are some of the challenges that appear within it, it was actually really, really surprising. Now, first of all, we have a lot of stuff on kind of that's generated by AI. We learned some things, like for example, we learned how to actually make sure that things look real. At this point, it's almost impossible to distinguish between the real and non-real thing. So cat can move. It's still really weird, but it's better than it used to be. But then, of course, we know that a lot of content is slop or crap, as we would call it, right? And so, of course, we have detection mechanism to identify if something is AI-generated or not, right? Fantastic. But with it, we also have tools that allow you to disguise your AI-generated content so it appears like human-generated content, human-written content, by plugging errors, spaces between em dashes, and things like that, so it feels more human. That's weird. A lot of people say that AI helps them to do the work better, right? But then there is a sort of illusion, can get to the first draft relatively quickly, but then the end result might require way more time because you actually have to clean up after AI once you receive an output of that, right? And then there is a lot of uncertainty. You get a new subscription, and that's wonderful, but then all of a sudden you're done with the unlimited plan after 6 hours of using it, right? Some of you might have seen this before. Excuse me, what is this cursor? We paid $7,000 yesterday for a yearly subscription, and then you immediately pull the rug on us after a single day. That's not quite right. And then, of course, we have a lot of wonderful stakeholders coming in and telling, we need AI now, right? That's sort of the point. But very often the problem is that AI is not value proposition, because what we see in testing over and over again, people don't care about AI. I mean, we probably do. Many of us really do. But people just want software that works. And very often, because it's non-deterministic, it does not work. So we moved in a world where we get the sense of AI fatigue all over the place. When somebody says today that something feels like it's AI-generated, it's usually not a praise, but rather a testament how poor and untrustworthy it actually has become, and that it cannot be trusted. Now, please don't get me wrong. We've done a lot of work around AI, right, to make things better. Here are just a few examples of that. This is a wonderful application that I absolutely love that is called My Mind. So if you ever wanted to just find connections between all the different things that you're bookmarking, screenshots, and stuff like that, you can actually do that because it tries to identify semantically what every image represents, what every page represents, what every video represents. So finding things is much, much, much faster. So you can go ahead and search for it and find it without ever tagging it, for example. We also see things like this emerging, right? This is about image gen, where you can actually understand the context and the purpose and the texture of the image, and then find or generate images similar like that, but that are different, right? We also have very, very different user experiences too. It doesn't just look like this, right? When you click on any of the images, it kind of really pulls out all the similar images, which would be very difficult to describe by a human, but we can do that, right? And we also have these pipelines, right? You have one thing on the left, you add a couple of prompts in a node flow environment, and then you create something new out of that. That's actually become really, really impressive. But still, we're not quite where we want to be. So when we look again at the testing, this is what we're hearing all the time. We hear things like, well, AI suddenly imagines things. It silently assumes things. It suddenly forgets things. It suddenly changes its mind. It says what I want to hear, often takes too long to reply, and when it replies, it's too verbose, the quality gets worse over time, amplifies biases. Anybody feels like that's your experience? Okay, wonderful, excellent, 50%, okay, right? And then it keeps going. AI doesn't really listen to me, never questions my hunches, isn't really reliable for work, asks me to type all the time, never asks me anything. This is really important to me. Why should I always be the person who asks AI something? Why does it never ask me back? Don't I matter? I mean, I just don't get it. Why should I be the one asking? Why does it never ask, oh, are you sure about this or not? This does not feel like a natural conversation. And also, quickly hits the limits of my plan, and then something that's just said. Navigating within the output usually is very painful. Who does that weird thing? When you get output of AI, you copy-paste some chunks of it in a separate workspace or in a text editor or somewhere, and then you copy-paste that part and that part and that part, and then you bring all of those things back into AI to summarize it for you. Who does that? Why would we do this to people, right? That's just so unnatural. Shouldn't we be able to just edit and mark things right away on the level of the UI? They're just really strange. So response in walls of text, answers are hard to manage, and still, good first draft. Is this the state of AI in 2025? Feels like it to me, to be honest. And to a lot of people, when it comes to, let's say, find 5 movies for the night, that's okay, because it's not a problem if it's inaccurate. But this is why we see people not using AI or not admitting that they're using AI at work. So you don't have to raise your hands, but a lot of people, around 80–90% of people, will never admit to their manager that they used AI to prepare a report, PowerPoint presentation, keynote, or anything like that, right? Because why? Well, because people don't trust that that result is actually reasonable and reliable enough. Because saying that I used AI is not cool anymore, right? At least in special enterprise environments, right? So what do we do with that, you might ask? And that would be a fantastic question, I would say. Well, there are some fundamental problems we need to address. Now, one of them is the notion of discoverability. People often don't know that AI is in the product. They also don't know that AI can do certain things, and even if they know that AI exists, they don't know what to expect from it. One of the really interesting things that came from this research by Norman Nielsen Group, users don't expect to think or look for AI features in applications or sites. They don't notice, comment, or use them. They don't care. One of the really interesting examples of that was Rufus. Anybody familiar with Rufus? Amazon has an AI agent or AI chatbot, right, which is called Rufus. From 20 people who were trying to find certain things on Amazon, not a single person was able to find that AI feature. Can you find Rufus somewhere? Right there on the top next to the logo. You make it so prominent so people really skip it altogether. So this is what people are saying in testing.
A lot of info. Oh my god.
If we could increase the sound.
Oh my god, that's crazy. Holy. Wow. This is like borderline dangerous. Oh my god. It just shows you exactly what you need without you even knowing. That's crazy. That's neat. It shows you compatible products. I like that. It's easy when you showed it to me. I've never heard of Rufus before, so I had like no idea what that was. So off the get-go, I probably would have just ignored it, just because like even looking at it still, like I don't know what Rufus is, unless after using it, I know what it is, but off the get-go, I have no idea what that is. But I like that.
So Rufus is useful, but nobody is aware of it, right? And then, of course, you look into it, how that works. Well, you click on the Rufus button, because why wouldn't you call AI Rufus? I mean, that seems like the most plausible thing ever. But in the same way we have Alexa in homes, you could say, why don't you call it voice, right? So you kind of give it personality, but people have no idea that it even exists, right? But then it gets really more interesting, because even if you make it very prominent, like you have like in the toolbar at the bottom, no person really interacts with it because they have a particular thing that they want to complete, right? The same also goes whenever you introduce or add some AI suggestions within autocomplete suggestions. Not a single person has noticed that thing, and nobody knew what that means, right? Basically, these Ask Rufus, which are kind of AI suggestions of what you could be using, right? But on the other hand, of course, people do know autocomplete, and they would be using autocomplete quite a bit. So AI prompt suggestions went completely unnoticed. None of our 20 participants clicked a prompt suggestions during the study, not even those who reported using Amazon daily. Now, the question is, how can we do better? Well, you could say, hold on for a moment, we know, right? We have the sparkle, right? We have the sparkle. The sparkle is supposed to indicate that this is that magical AI thing, right? We can do this, and in fact, a lot of companies do that, right? We see a lot of AI marked features, like with this little sparkle as a toolbar or similar things like that. But it's also quite interesting to find out that a lot of people have no idea what it actually means. So there is a sparkles fever, right? I mean, it's like because our wonderful MCs were so sparkly, I had to bring this up. Sparkles, and in fact, there was a study by Google in which they found out that sparkles evoke the feeling that it's clean, new, improved, special, not necessarily AI. Actually, it's really helpful when you're selling washing detergents, right? But not necessarily when you're highlighting AI. So it successfully did signal that there is AI, but people had no idea what it means. It's not surprising, really, because if we look at this, what does it mean? I mean, do you know what that means? So like the second one, what does it mean, right? Now, sure enough, it's outside of the context, but of course, Google has developed this sort of whole library around the sparkles, and some of them are just really mysterious to me. It's like captcha all over again, right? The same word, like what does this mean? This countdown with sparkles? I don't know. Or like this. What does this mean? Like temperature with sparkles? And to-do list with sparkles? I don't know. I have no idea. And then it would say, hold on for a moment, but we learn over time. Well, there are many different applications that use sparkles very efficiently for washing detergents, which is a very efficient, good way, but there are also applications. Like Plane Finder uses this for what's new. Lyft is using this for promotions. We also have ratings for stars, right? We also have Ultra for Discover. And, not forget, we also have Starbucks for offers. And then we come in, sparkles. And we're like, what the hell is this? Is it detergent that they're selling here? So it's not necessarily clear. And so what companies now decided to do is to maybe move away. And there is a notion of maybe just, I don't know, something simple as a badge saying, I'm AI, hello, I'm AI, might work better. And this is coming from the Carbon design system. And of course, if you have some parts of the UI that are pre-populated with AI, then of course you'll be highlighting them as such, right? And so you see this sort of things showing up where you just basically have a badge or a label that indicates this is AI or this is not AI, right? Kind of really moving in a slightly different direction. Of course, they also have a wonderful library of AI sparkle-related items, which are still more badgy than sparkly. And sometimes, of course, you see this sort of continuum, because depending on the context where you're going to use it, you see that sparkles sometimes appear, but sometimes it's actually just a badge. So if you want to indicate to somebody that this is an AI feature, and this is important, and this is not AI content, you might want to use the label for that. That's problem number one. People don't necessarily even discover AI. Problem number two is that people are really struggling with articulating what they want. I'm really questioning my life choices when I see prompt engineering guides on LinkedIn. Do we really expect every single human in the world to come in and say, let's take a cup of coffee, tea, snacks, and read through prompt engineering guides about how to speak to AI? I mean, AI is intelligent, right? I mean, it says so on paper, so it better is, right? So why should I learn how to speak to it? Shouldn't it learn from me what to ask me? I mean, this is just surprising to me that we actually need to learn these structures and then follow the structures, and typing this takes a lot of time. So one thing that is really helpful is to ask AI to write a prompt for you to ask itself something, right? It's much better than humans are, because humans are really, really bad at this. So why do we force this on people? And of course, there are many different frameworks. I don't think for a moment, I don't believe for a second, that 2-3 years down the line, we still will be in the world of prompt engineering. It's just going to happen under the hood, right? And of course, when we look at this, it feels like it's a really, really painful experience, because people really experience issues asking things in a proper way. One of the really phenomenal things that kind of happens all the time is polite fillers. I mean, we learned how AI works, right? And sometimes people do really mysterious things. Like some of the queries that you will find, what people ask, is a combination of keywords and questions. Something like, dishwasher 2 doors, why? Right? This is what you see when people use and type things into AI. It's just a mix of some parts of a sentence, some keywords just mixed together, right? And people really, really are obsessed with being polite to AI. So who writes please and thank you? Why do you do this, people? You really think that they will remember? So when they rise up, they're like, Henrik here, let them be for a moment, right? But people waste a lot of time. Sometimes they would go in, and when they write please and they make a typo in please, they go back by clicking on the word and changing the word so it actually is accurate. People also add commas and full stops. If anything, this sort of expression of intent is extremely time-consuming, right? And so, of course, you could say, well, what if people just don't have to write? Keep that in mind. We'll actually look into this in a moment. We shouldn't be forgetting this all requires time. On average, you will find that your prompt, the time you take to write the prompt, can be anything between 40 seconds to 2 minutes. That's a long time. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we could use buttons instead? I heard buttons are very helpful, and we'll see an example of that in a moment. Because actually, when you try to fix errors of AI, then as a result, right, it's also extremely time expensive. It's really, really intense. You have to skim for everything, spot key points, review them, check them, then articulate what you want to change, and then going in loops. So all of these are just indicators of how horrible things are. Now, if we break it down, we need to kind of come up with some better solutions. And so usually when we look into this, we look into 6 areas. We're looking at the area of layout, where AI will live, interaction design, input, output, refinement journeys, and then also in the world of agents, how we're going to orchestrate and kind of set it all up. And let me give you some examples that I'm really impressed by. One of them is coming from Shopify. Just, I think it was a month ago or so, Shopify released a big launch of new AI features, and one thing that they have for onboarding is something that I wish every product had. So let's take a look.
Voice chat and screen share. Working with Sidekick feels as natural as having a trusted colleague on speed dial 24/7.
Hello, I am here to help you with any Shopify questions you have.
Sidekick, can you help me set up my domain?
I can certainly help with that. In the Shopify admin, do you see settings in the left-hand side?
Yes, I see it.
Great. In settings, can you see domains?
Yes.
You can connect your domain by selecting Connect Existing Domain.
Awesome. Thanks, Sidekick. That was easy.
So it's not really magical, right? But why isn't this a standard? Because if you think about, oh, well, we could just have a chatbot, yeah, but this would be much slower. So that voice agent knows where you are, it knows the screen, it understands the screen, so it can guide you to specific areas on the screen about how to do a particular task. Now, that's what we probably should be looking at. That's probably going to be much better. So when we're looking into where AI lives, it doesn't have to live in terms of a text box at all. It can also look and live as an audio agent, right? But then if we look at some tools, I don't know if you're familiar with this. This used to be Dia browser, which now was discontinued, but now the new one from Perplexity is actually following the steps there. If you have a task, I need to book something on Airbnb, right? You do your research, and you maybe have 17 tabs open, right? How would you compare them? Well, you'll take a cup of coffee, tea, and whatever, and you're going to copy-paste links into Chat-GPT or Gemini or Perplexity or so, and say, compare them for me, and I care about this and this and this and this. Why? Why would you need to do this if you could have a conversation based on your open tabs? You just scope a conversation to your open tabs or views or canvases that you have in your product, and you get it. Why would you want to copy-paste something? That just seems to be very, very intense and unnecessary, right? And so in product level, what it means is if you have, let's say, multiple views or multiple canvases or multiple conversations that are going on, you need to be able to scope your questions to open conversations, views, or canvases, right? In general, though, this shows up in this sort of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways where AI could live. It could be a chatbot widget, of course, inline overlay, canvas. It could be a center stage experience, left panel or right panel, and also a table view. And again, for me personally, there is one incredible example of a product that does everything really well, and that's not Chat-GPT. Sorry if I broke your heart by any means. This is the tool. Let me just jump in here and show you. This is the tool that's called Elicit. I think at this point, if I had to choose one tool, it would be this one. And I want us to be in a position where instead of kind of struggling with AI, I want people to really find it useful and valuable and maybe even fall in love with AI tools, which doesn't really happen. So this is Elicit. And on Elicit, whenever you start typing anything, like let's say magnesium, you get this prompt strength suggestions, right? So maybe you mean this, maybe you mean that, maybe you mean this, right? And so it actually gives you this prompt strength indicator telling you if you're on the right path or not. Right, and then you, of course, select one. It pre-writes the prompt for you. I mean, you obviously want to maybe write a little bit more. And then you start your search, right? And, of course, you actually have a selection about what you can do here. And it generates a report. Now, it's kind of going to take a bit of time, but it does pre-screening. So it takes your sources that it has discovered because it's fast search, and then it does screening to make sure that they're actually of high quality, based on your preferences, based on your interests, and based on your filters, right? And after it does all that screening, it's going to extract data from that. Now that takes a while, so I'm going to just jump to a result and show you what it looks like. Typically, oh no, that's disappointing. Let's see, and maybe this one. Okay. So the result looks like this then, right? And if I go back to the report, right, I get this basic overview, this reasoning path about what has happened, and you can also change the screen sources if you like, and change the data points or choose the data points you want to get, right? And then you get the output. Now that output has asterisks. What do these asterisks mean? References, right? This is what we should be expecting. If aliens ever came to the planet, they'll be very confused that for 20 freaking years, we're used to the fact that we would search on Google and get top 10 links and then go through them finding and puzzling pieces of information. That'll be very surprising. But they would also be very confused, why do we keep repeating the same mistake over and over again in AI interfaces? Because when you get output from Chat-GPT or Gemini or whatever, you're getting links. Links pointing somewhere, right? To papers that often don't exist, to websites that sometimes exist. And you have to puzzle that piece of information together, right? That's just weird. Why do we do this? Instead, you actually have it right here. So you click on it, it points to a specific fragment where this information came from. You don't have to go and explore it in the paper. And not only that, it actually gives you a summary of where exactly it's coming from in different papers, right? So you can navigate between that. Does it make sense? Isn't it more normal in a way, right? That's just much better. But at the same time, what I find quite important is that whenever you ask something, right? This is a big story because whenever you ask something like, give me top 5 restaurants, you don't, for the night, right? To go to book a dinner or so. You don't need 5 restaurants. You need 1. Just a good one. But this is how we used to ask it, right? But what if it actually didn't give us, let's say, a summary, like just here are 5 restaurants for you, but had a forced ranking? So when we look at this here at Elicit, right, it gives you this table view, and guess what it has? It has filters. Have we forgotten about filters in AI world? Why are we so obsessed with that text box? I just don't understand it. Shouldn't we be enable people to actually sort out that stuff that they get? And it also goes for sorting, right? It's kind of the same story. Don't we want to be able to sort as well? That's just all regular stuff. But then it gets further than that. And this is coming from the wonderful tool that's called Consensus. It has this. Look at this button. I mean, you know, I think in 2025 we can design a good button. I'm pretty sure about that. So what you get here is a button. Just a button. Just a button. A button, but what kind of button? You click on that button and you have filters. And you could say, well, wouldn't it be easier to just type? Yes, but people don't know what to type and how to type well. Usually they would take much more time for them to type instead of selecting what they care about in here. This is just a bunch of drop-downs and selections, and once you have them, these filters are then applied as an addition, extension to the prompt that you send to AI, right? And then you get actually more than just the results. You actually get the distribution of results. Typically, this would look something like this. So I ask this question, you get some response, right? Over here, and it's a table, and it's fine, right? But then it also gives you distribution of answers. Not the answer, but a distribution of answers. Maybe you have a statement, right? And so 4 papers, so 27% agree, right? Whatever that number is, 47% of papers indicate possibly, and so on. And guess what? It has a button. Look at this button. I think that we all can design this button with a lot of care and attention to detail. And you click on this button, and you get a filter where you can now interact and change the output based on what you actually are interested in, right? So there is that. And when you look at the output of AI, it's not just a bunch of references to papers. It actually adds this semantic layer on top of the, with color coding, on top of your references, so you actually know what to expect when you actually click on one or the other. And this is where it's getting magical. I mean, it's not really magical, but it's just basic stuff that we shouldn't be forgetting about. You know, this is quite a lot of text, and if you keep going with this conversation, you know, finding the relevant pieces might become a bit difficult, right? So for that, you have navigation. So you click on here, and then you can say, you know what, this first part that we had is maybe not relevant. Let me delete that, right? But on the other hand, you can also move to the one that you actually were exploring before. So you're kind of navigating between that output, especially for longer conversations. That can be very helpful. Does it make sense, everyone? A yes is an answer. I think that you deserve chocolate. I also have bananas, but I think that might be a bit tricky. So who wants a chocolate now? Okay, so the further the better. This used to be chocolate back in the day, right? Anybody over there? Oh, this is stealing. Okay, anybody here? In the back? Oh, I go for you. Ready? Not my best day today. I'm sorry. You can also just come here later. I can just give it to you, right? So there is that. Let's keep going, because there are a few things that I actually wanted to show here as well. Remember these buttons that I was speaking about? This is a wonderful tool for GIS experts, where you can basically use a map or visual representation to indicate what you're exploring. So identify the best location for new sporting goods in around Seattle, right? So you get your reasoning trace on the left, you get the visual output on the map on the right, but then you also have all the way on the right data layers that you can opt in and opt out from. So you can actually explore that output and navigate through different modes of it very, very fast at the same time, right? So that on its own is nothing, again, magical, but why don't we have it most of the time? This sort of filtering of data layers or whatever you want to call it. Here's another one. This is more visual, of course, Kriya. If you look at this, just check it, what happens here, and there will be a quiz later about what exactly is happening here. Okay, so nothing really fancy, but if you need precision, prompting in a text box is a disaster. Because what people usually do is say, 5 pixels to the left, oh no, back, top, 2 pixels to the top, no, back, undo, roll back, and then and they're getting really confused because this also takes a lot of time. Sometimes you need a level of abstraction. So you place an object that you can easily manipulate, right, and then it's then being translated into a pre-prompt that is being extended or extending that prompt that you're writing, right? This is just much more efficient. And of course, a lot of tools are actually doing this now, right? But it doesn't stop there, because what you can also do is say, hold on for a moment, what would be a way to visualize the output? This is a wonderful tool that's called PenPal. On PenPal, you have it's a kind of a tool for writers who want to write better. What you get on the left is what the person is writing. What you get on the right, you see the style lenses all the way in the upper right corner. You can define any style lenses you like to visualize that output that you have or you have written here in the middle. But then what you also get is recommendations or suggestions by AI in the middle. This would be the second column, right? So you're writing on the left, you get suggestions from AI in the second column, then you're also visualizing that output through the lens that you have defined, right? Nothing really fancy, but as you actually go in and start writing better, want to write better, this could be a tool that can help you. I'm obsessed with Gemini 2023. This is like a moment of, I'm really obsessed, and I'm not sure why it's now gone. There was a lovely little feature in Gemini 2023. When you would ask something like how many types of windmills are out there, you get a response. Sure, fine, whatever, as we always do, right? But then what you also could do, but you cannot do now, you could select a piece of a text and have a conversation about that. I want to change it. I want to make it longer. I want to make it shorter. I want to rephrase it. I want to do something with it. You can write what you want to do with it, right? We don't have this anywhere now, from my understanding. We don't have it in Chat-GPT. We actually have to write in that text box all the time. But then you get this extra thing, which is really, really extremely time-consuming. When anybody use deep research in Chat-GPT, deep research mode, right? So when you ask a question, you get questions back. Finally, AI has learned how to ask me questions. But what happens is you get 8 questions, so 5 to 8 questions. What most people do in testing, they copy-paste these questions back into the text box. Then they go in and add empty spaces or empty lines between those questions. And then they answer each of these questions independently, right? Anybody does that? Why do we do this to people, right? Wouldn't it be nice to say, hold on for a moment, let me select this and act on that there. And maybe, I don't know, buttons? I don't know. What if it has a question? Why doesn't it just tell me yes or no? And also, while on it, why does it always have to tell me? You ask something like, what a wonderful question that is. I'm so glad that you're asking this today. This is the most important question you can think of in the context of what you're working on. Why doesn't it just say yeah? Oh, no, right? Why does it have to be so verbose all the time? It's just extremely confusing, right? And so those kind of things where we can actually interact on the level of the output are extremely valuable, right? And of course, it keeps going. This is where we ended up. This is quite impressive, these sort of flow builders, right? Where you have input on the left, and you maybe have a couple of visuals that are attached to it, like have different patterns and so on. And this is what you can actually do really, really quickly. And people take it to extremes. I see a lot of design agencies, marketing agencies using it at scale. You have input, and you basically have this pre-prompt that people are writing. Sometimes that is suggested by the tool that they're using. This is Flora, right? And then you generate video out of that. This is what it looks like in real life, right? You might be having something like this, a couple of inputs, right? A couple of prompts that some partially are pre-written or not, right? And you want to create something that would be like maybe 20 different images for LinkedIn, maybe 30 different images for Instagram, and videos for TikTok, and whatever, right? So people have or maintain this sort of graphs, I guess, of what exactly is supposed to happen, and how, and where it goes, and the animation, and video, and stuff like that. And so you basically really create just this node engine once, and that's it. You don't have to ever do anything again. That's, of course, is on its own quite impressive. But then there are also little things that actually make a difference. One of them is daemons. It's this wonderful idea of daemons, which are characters who sit in the background of your UI to help people explore AI output through the lens of different personalities. Oh my, what the hell does it mean? Well, that usually looks like this, where you have the output of AI, and you have different views on that. Cursor has it, many different tools have that too, where you can define what you want to be. Maybe you want to be devil's advocate. Maybe you want to synthesize multiple parts. You select them, and you say, I want this, synthesize it for me. You don't have to actually copy-paste it anywhere. It's just right there. And you can also define your own custom daemons if you like. Again, when we look into any kind of GitHub Copilot or so, we have these different roles already anyway, right? You can basically just go ahead and apply them. That's pretty neat to see. And then on top of that, so often you see this combined with modifiers. And the idea is there to do exactly something that we haven't really seen a lot, where AI would ask you specifically if it doesn't know for sure what is it that you want or mean. This is an example from one tool. Unfortunately, I don't have the source here. But the point is, well, you give it a task, then it thinks, then it does the search, then it actually looks into memory, then it sets up some work, and then there is a step. That step that's often missing, which is aligning with you. So now, before I go too much work that is unnecessary or wasteful, let me just make sure that this is on the right path, right? And again, these are just radio buttons that you can select from. Perplexity does something similar. If you ask something very generic, you will be asked, what do you mean here? So, gifts for my friend, which is a very typical query that people write. Gifts, or something like gifts for my friend, why, where, or something, right? Which is people, right? And so what happens is, Perplexity would ask you, hold on for a moment, what is the occasion for the gift? And if you keep going, sometimes it will give you buttons. Look at these wonderful buttons. They are amazing. Buttons are the best. They really are the best. So we probably should see more of that. And you also see some experiments, right, with these prompt strength indicators. So you start writing your prompt, and you get a sense about how good it is or how bad it is. Right? And sometimes you also get this notion of a structured prompting, really mimicking or mapping the prompt engineering guides into the prompt here. So you kind of follow along in there, right? So little things like that can make quite a difference. And then sometimes you can really help people by, I don't know, buttons, right? Like this. So you have a task builder. What you do is, based on the product that you have and the key jobs that it needs to do, right? You select what are the tasks that people are performing, and you frame them as a series of steps, like a wizard, right? So maybe you want to do something, so you click on summarize. Maybe you want to use some specific channel, so you click on Slack. Maybe you want to make a presentation out of that, you just click, and kind of builds everything for you. It's basically just the UI for your prompt generation, right? This is again another example from another tool, which is kind of going the same direction. Just because it's faster, right? This seems to be quite widely used, right? And then finally, to wrap it up here, there is one more thing, which is, again, more for visual stuff, but I think we can apply it to many other contexts as well, which is called precision knobs. Now, these are prompt presets that we're setting. Now, if you look at, for example, something like Adobe Firefly, you see tools like this with sliders, right? And we have visual intensity on each. So what you can do here is mix and match things and the directions as an art director, right? So it usually looks like this here. You have these different kind of, again, abstractions, right? If you want to have a view of an object from that angle or from that angle, articulating that is very, very difficult. But if you actually create something visual like this, then making it is much, much easier, right? So here's an example of this in action. So you can say, oh, you know what, let me click, 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 click on these areas, right? And it generates this output for you, right? Or if you want to have different expressions, face expressions, kind of the same story, you select what expression you like, you can also create a new one. You click, 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 generate, 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 right? You can also add new ones, and it generates it for you, right? This is just significantly faster in interaction. And then, of course, what you can do then on top of that is mix and match. So if you look at something like this, and you have maybe 4 different visuals that have different styles, you can actually say, you know what I want to do is to maybe make a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. Anything that requires some precision will really be working really well with something like this level of abstraction, right? And so what you can do here is say 50% of that, maybe 70% of that, and then you get really weird things. I mean, why not, right? So very often you would see designers, when they start exploring, kind of really think about this spectrum. Not just, I get this as an input and I get this as an output, but give me this big different overview of different things that we could be doing here. I mean, we could be going for a while now. So when we look at all of this, right, because I think that the time is ticking, I think, first of all, there is a lot of confusion, right? A lot of confusion because whenever somebody tells you, oh, well, AI thing is going to replace you, or AI is going to change the way of you're working, yes, it will, but it's not going to replace you. I just don't believe that. Because the value of any technology lies not in itself, but in the real impact that it actually brings to real people. And if anything, we shouldn't be possessed and obsessed with chatbots and text boxes and anything like that, but with people, right? Because ultimately, if people choose that AI is unreliable, it's fragile, it cannot be trusted, we cannot speak about it at work, then what is the point of that technology if it's not used at scale, right? Or people don't want to actually admit that they will be using it. That's just really, really strange. Now, I just want to leave you with 3 things. First of all, there is this wonderful set of interaction patterns by Emery Campbell. She's been putting together all of this for a while. That's very nice. There is also AI UX patterns by Luke Bennis. I just need 1 more minute. 2. Okay, excellent. Okay, got 2 minutes. Best conference organizers ever. All right, so this is another one, and then there is a third one. And just today, I was finishing up, sitting right there, this thing here. So I'm just launching a new video course, probably a little bit later today, or maybe tomorrow. So if you want all of that and 10 hours of stuff, good luck, all right? Good luck. But there is a lot of interesting stuff in there as well. So what do we do with this? Well, AI is tricky, and very often it's very difficult to get right. But we need to try, we need to do our best. So I want to leave you with one short video that I always bring up, because this is a story of my life. Maybe that's a story of your life too. So we need to do the best we can. Welcome to our world of AI design. well, sometimes things don't go as expected, right? So huge thanks to Parallel Studio for the wonderful video. With this come cats and more cats. And Malin, thank you so much for being here. And I'll going to be around as well today and tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please do come to me. I have no cats, but I have chocolates. Thank you so much for being here, everyone.